In the autumn of 1943, an experiment allegedly took place in the United States of America at the height of World War II, which remains one of the most mysterious episodes in military history. The USS Eldridge is believed to have been involved in an experiment that year that aimed to develop new technologies such as teleportation or invisibility. The military project, known as the Philadelphia Experiment, was intended to make the ship invisible to radar and undetectable by enemy submarines. However, according to numerous accounts, the effects of the experiment were not at all what was expected, leading to the strict secrecy surrounding the story. According to available information, the experiment was conducted at a military base in Philadelphia. On the morning of the 28th of October, 1943, a powerful electromagnetic field was activated on board the Eldridge, under the guidance of American scientists, including Albert Einstein. The ship was supposed to become invisible to radar and visual surveillance to avoid enemy attacks, but everything did not go according to plan. The ship literally disappeared from the view of everyone present for several minutes, and when it reappeared, the consequences for the crew were dire. It is believed that during the activation of the equipment, a green haze appeared around the ship, after which the Eldridge disappeared from the port of Philadelphia. Some eyewitnesses claim to have seen the ship disappear into a green veil and simply vanish into thin air. At this point, according to one version, the Eldridge moved to the port of Norfolk, Virginia, 400 kilometers from the site of the experiment, where it was also seen by witnesses. The Eldridge is said to have remained visible in Norfolk for only a few minutes before disappearing again, returning to Philadelphia. This phenomenon, called teleportation, has become one of the most mysterious aspects of the experiment. When the ship reappeared in the port of Philadelphia, the crew was in a terrible state. Some crew members had disappeared or, as eyewitnesses reported, had literally merged into the ship's structure as if their bodies and metal had fused into one. Other sailors suffered severe psychological trauma, including hallucinations, amnesia, and mental disorders. One of the most eerie parts of this story is that some crew members became invisible for a short time after the experiment and could appear in unexpected places. This only added to the mystery and fear surrounding what happened during the experiment. This incident became known thanks to the story of Carl Miles, a former U.S. Navy sailor who described the events on board the Eldridge in his interviews and letters. The story of Miles was picked up by the American writer and researcher Morris Jessup, who greatly contributed to the popularization of this topic. In the 50s, Jessup published several books in which he suggested that the experiment was not just a military maneuver, but a real breakthrough in the study of electromagnetism and quantum physics. Jessup argued that the project could open the door to new technologies that would allow humanity to travel not only in space, but also in time. Despite official denials from the U.S. Navy, enthusiasts continue to look for new data and evidence that could confirm the reality of this experiment. Most proponents of this theory believe that the teleportation project was part of a larger military study. Some even suggest that the experiment involved prominent scientists, including Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla, who were exploring the possibility of using the electromagnetic field to manipulate time and space. According to this version, Einstein used his knowledge of the unified field theory to create the effect of invisibility, while Tesla, in turn, was developing electromagnetic devices to provide the necessary energy field. Modern researchers continue to be interested in the Philadelphia experiment, believing that this incident was only the beginning of the development of secret technologies based on quantum physics. They believe that this research could have become the basis for scientific breakthroughs that could change our understanding of physical laws. Although confirmation of the experiment's reality remains controversial, the stories about it inspire both scientists and enthusiasts of research into the latest technologies, and even spark debate in academic circles. It has been suggested that such experiments could be part of a larger program of research into alternative energy sources or ways of traveling between dimensions. One of the most intriguing theories suggests that the results of the experiment were used to further research in teleportation and quantum physics. In particular, some believe that the U.S. government may have continued such experiments after the end of World War II, creating secret laboratories for research aimed at developing teleportation technologies. These theories are supported by numerous reports of mysterious phenomena that occurred in different parts of the world in the following decades. Perhaps these studies became the basis for the development of technologies that remain unknown to the general public. Despite official denials and the lack of clear evidence, the story of the Philadelphia experiment continues to live on in the minds of many people. It gives rise to new theories that fuel imagination and inspire the scientific community to further research. Stories about teleportation, invisibility, and the possibility of time travel have become the basis for many science fiction stories, films, and books that fuel interest in this topic. Even today, more than 70 years after the events, the mystery of the Philadelphia experiment remains one of the most discussed topics among those interested in unexplained phenomena and secret military projects. Despite the decades that have passed, the Philadelphia experiment remains a legend that prompts us to seek answers to the question of what really happened to the Eldridge. Perhaps over time, as new documents are declassified and the latest scientific methods become available, we will be able to learn more about these events. But for now, this story remains one of the most mysterious and fascinating pages of military history, raising many questions and prompting the search for the truth. The legend of the Eldridge reminds us that science and technology have many unsolved secrets waiting to be discovered. After the Second World War, rumors began to circulate in the United States about a mysterious scientific project codenamed Project Philadelphia. According to these rumors, the U.S. military engaged the leading physicists of the time to create invisibility technology, a tool capable of making warships invisible to radar and even visual perception. However, the scientific experiments, which were likely conducted aboard the USS Eldridge, produced such unpredictable results that the project was immediately classified. The central role in the project was reportedly played by Dr. John von Neumann, a prominent physicist known for his involvement in the Manhattan Project and the development of the first computers. It has also been reported that Albert Einstein, who conducted groundbreaking research in electromagnetism and quantum theory, and even Nikola Tesla, whose research work in electromagnetic fields could have contributed to the development of new experimental technologies, may have been involved in the project. If this information is true, it is their knowledge that could have enabled the creation of such technology. It also suggests that the United States military was trying to use leading scientific knowledge to create new technologies that would have a strategic advantage during and after the war. The main purpose of the experiment was to use super-powerful electromagnetic generators to create a field that was supposed to make the destroyer Eldridge invisible to enemy radars. In August 1943, during tests in the port of Philadelphia, the ship was surrounded by special devices that generated a magnetic field of enormous power. According to eyewitnesses, this field disturbed the surrounding space so much that the Eldridge completely disappeared from the view of observers and radars for several minutes. This disappearance raised many questions and gave rise to various theories about the possible mechanisms and technologies that could have been used in this experiment. Some researchers suggest that the use of electromagnetic fields of such power could have led to the formation of a wormhole through which the ship moved to another space. However, according to historians and conspiracy theorists, the invisibility experiment had unintended consequences. Witnesses claim that the ship not only disappeared from sight, but also moved in space, up to the port in Norfolk, Virginia. Only a few minutes later, the Eldridge reappeared in the port of Philadelphia, but surrounded by panic and chaos. A green haze surrounded the ship, and the crew members were in a terrible state. Some of them were fused to the metal surfaces of the ship and could not be separated, while others were panicked, amnesiac, and suffering from severe hallucinations. This phenomenon is often described as something beyond the scope of science at the time, and many researchers believe that it may indicate interference with the space-time structure, which led to fatal consequences for the crew. Crew members who survived the incident later claimed to have lost their sense of time and even space. Some of them recalled seeing other places, and even possibly other times during the disappearance. Some of the sailors came out of the experiment with serious mental trauma, suffering from hallucinations, and an inability to distinguish reality from illusions. The effect of the magnetic field on their brains is speculated to have caused such disorders, but even today no one can fully explain what exactly happened during the experiment. The disorders that have been described in many testimonies may indicate an interaction between powerful magnetic fields in the human brain, which may have led to changes at the molecular level or even to disruptions in neural networks. In addition to numerous psychological and physical injuries, there were rumors that some sailors gained the ability to disappear for a while even after the experiment was over, as if the ability to be invisible remained in their bodies as a long-term effect. Moreover, several of the participants later went missing under mysterious circumstances, raising questions about whether they were victims of top-secret government operations to preserve information. Theories that the sailors had acquired certain abnormal powers add even more mystery to the story. These theories may be exaggerations or products of the collective imagination, but they may also indicate that the technology tested on the Eldridge had unintended and lasting consequences for the participants. In 1959, American writer and conspiracy theorist Morris Jessup hypothesized in his book, The UFO Case, that the Philadelphia experiment was not only an attempt to make the ship invisible, but also an experiment in teleporting objects. Jessup assumed that the military could have been testing a new technology that worked on the edge of electromagnetism and quantum physics. His book greatly increased interest in the story and prompted the public to demand declassification of the information, but the military refused to comment. Jessup's book became a real phenomenon, as it highlighted topics that had been discussed only in narrow circles until then, and drew attention to the possibility of technologies that could completely change our understanding of space, time, and physical laws. Today, enthusiasts, scholars, and the general public continue to search for evidence of this experiment, looking through available archives and trying to find witnesses who could shed light on the events at the Port of Philadelphia. Was the Philadelphia Project a real teleportation experiment? Or was it just a product of imagination created to cover up other, less mysterious military developments? Could the outstanding physicists of the time really have created a technology capable of moving objects in space? The absence of concrete evidence leaves these questions open, but it does keep them interesting. The answers to these questions remain unknown, but the very fact that this story is still of interest to researchers and the public shows a deep interest in the possibilities that go beyond modern science. Despite all the denials and the lack of direct evidence, the story of Project Philadelphia continues to live on as one of the most mysterious chapters in U.S. military history, and many believe that the truth will eventually come to light. Perhaps someday we will be able to learn more about these events through the declassification of new documents or through the latest scientific discoveries that will allow us to better understand the nature of electromagnetism, quantum physics, and their interactions with the human body. And while the history of the Philadelphia Project remains shrouded in mystery, it continues to inspire both the scientific community and everyone who seeks to find answers to the most mysterious questions about our world and the limits of the possible. In the mid-20th century, rumors began to circulate about a mysterious project that was supposedly intended to create a breakthrough in technology, so significant that it could change the course of history. The Philadelphia Project and the related Eldridge ship teleportation experiment in the Port of Philadelphia became famous for opening up the public to the possibility of how far government research in science could go. This story would not have been so popular if it were not for a former sailor who decided to tell his side of the story in an effort to bring the truth to the world. Morris C. Allen, who served in the U.S. Navy during World War II, claimed that the Eldridge was indeed used for experiments, but not all crew members knew what was really going on. Allen later said that the ship was equipped with special devices to create a powerful electromagnetic field around the ship. Most of the sailors thought that these devices were designed for the latest types of radar. However, according to Allen, high-ranking officers knew the real purpose of the tests, to make the ship invisible or even teleport it. The experiment, according to Allen, took place in the early morning hours of July 1943. When the powerful electromagnetic generators were switched on, a dense green glow appeared around the ship, which gradually began to envelop Eldridge. Within a few minutes, the ship seemed to disappear into thin air, and it seemed to have disappeared not only from sight, but also from radar. During the ship's disappearance, anomalous phenomena were observed in the surrounding space. The air became heavy with a distinct smell of ozone, and the electromagnetic voltage increased to the extent that it affected everything around. Allen said that the sailors who remained on board suffered terrible side effects. Some lost consciousness, others experienced severe pain or disorientation, and one of the officers panicked and tried to leave the ship, which remained surrounded by a dense green haze. After several minutes of absolute silence, the Eldridge reappeared in the port of Philadelphia. However, many crew members were seriously injured, and some of them needed immediate hospitalization due to mental disorders. According to Allen's testimony, several sailors literally fused with the metal parts of the ship, as if their bodies had been fused into the ship's hull during the teleportation. Doctors were unable to help these victims of the experiment, and after these events, the U.S. Navy decided to permanently terminate the project and classify all its information. Allen also noted that the consequences of the experiment were so unpredictable and horrific for the military that it was deemed too risky to continue research in this area. However, this was not the only attempt to conduct such experiments. According to eyewitnesses, in 2024, at a conference on quantum physics, scientists hinted at the possibility of continuing research aimed at studying teleportation at the quantum level. It was suggested that modern advances in quantum mechanics could open up opportunities for the development of devices capable of manipulating space and time, as well as changing the physical nature of objects. This would mean that what was started during the Philadelphia experiment could be continued on a new level, using the achievements of modern science. In 2024, interest in Project Philadelphia was renewed after a series of international media reports on the discovery of anomalies in the location of electromagnetic fields in several locations around the world. These anomalies affect surrounding objects, and some scientists suggest that they may be the result of experiments similar to those conducted during Project Philadelphia. Despite the fact that there is no official confirmation, conspiracy theorists believe that governments of different countries are still investigating not only quantum teleportation, but also the possibility of interaction with other dimensions. Many modern scientists and theorists believe that humanity is on the verge of great discoveries in the field of quantum technologies. They suggest that experiments such as Project Philadelphia could be the first steps towards understanding how to manipulate the physical properties of matter, change its location, and even penetrate other dimensions. If this research had continued after the Second World War, it could have laid the foundation for new, even more ambitious programs. Skeptics, on the other hand, believe that all these stories are just a figment of imagination or exaggeration. They argue that there is no evidence to support the existence of the teleportation experiment, and all the evidence is based on rumors and speculation. Nevertheless, the story of the project continues to excite the imagination of many people. It has become the basis for numerous science fiction films, books, and conspiracy theories that fuel interest in the possibilities of science. Looking at modern scientific achievements, we can assume that humans may indeed be on the verge of technologies that have been dreamed of for decades. However, questions remain. Is it possible that the Philadelphia project has really opened the door to new dimensions? Are we able to understand and control the consequences if such technologies become a reality? The answers to these questions may remain unanswered, but the very fact that this story still raises so many questions and prompts new research is testament to its importance and impact on the development of science. The story of Project Philadelphia remains one of the most mysterious and debated pages in U.S. military history. Despite the lack of evidence, it continues to arouse the interest of researchers, academics, and conspiracy theorists. Perhaps one day we will learn more about these events when new documents are declassified or through new scientific discoveries that will allow us to better understand electromagnetic fields, quantum physics, and their impact on matter. In the meantime, this story reminds us that science and technology still have many unsolved mysteries waiting to be discovered.